The chieftain's wife screams as the red-hot bronze flows over her husband's lifeless face. But this isn't torture, this is love. And what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about Viking death. Picture this. It's 923 AD in the frozen fjords of Norway. You're not just a Viking warrior, you're the most feared raider from Iceland to Constantinople. Your longship has carved terror across 3 seas. Kings whisper your name in darkened halls. But here's the twist nobody tells you about Viking culture. The more powerful you were in life, the more horrifying your death ceremony became. We're not talking about those Hollywood funeral pyres you've seen. We're talking about rituals so disturbing that even medieval chroniclers refused to write them down. Last week we uncovered 3 Viking traditions that left you speechless. The blood eagle, the bone-breaking ceremonies, the living burial rites. But those were just the appetizer. Today we're diving into the archaeological evidence that's been buried for over 1,000 years. Traditions so extreme that modern historians debated for decades whether they were real or just the fever dreams of traumatized monks. And before we go deeper into this rabbit hole, drop a comment right now if you're ready to discover something that will literally change how you see Viking culture forever. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just history, it's a window into a mindset so alien, so brutal that it makes Game of Thrones look like a children's bedtime story. But first, let me ask you something that's going to haunt you. What if I told you that in 1904, archaeologists in Denmark uncovered a burial site so disturbing that they sealed it shut for 60 years, the Jelling burial mounds. You might know them as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, symbols of Viking glory. But Mound 2 held secrets that scholars literally couldn't stomach. Dr. Magnus Petersson's diary, locked away until 1987, describes what his team found beneath the royal chamber. The arrangement of bodies defies all known Viking burial customs. What we discovered suggests a practice so abhorrent that I question whether we should ever publish these findings. Here's what they found, and this is documented, photographed evidence. A chieftain's burial chamber surrounded by 12 smaller graves. Not warriors, not slaves, children. But here's where it gets twisted. The children weren't sacrificed, they were volunteers. The runic inscriptions told a story that made archaeologists sick. These weren't victims, they were the chieftain's own grandchildren, ages 8 to 16, who had chosen to accompany their grandfather to Valhalla. The runes describe their final words: "We go willingly to serve our blood in the hall of the gods." But wait, it gets worse. The positioning of the skeletons revealed something that changed everything we thought we knew about Viking family bonds. These children had been arranged in a specific pattern around their grandfather's body, a pattern that spelled out a message in ancient Norse, a message that roughly translates to, "Death is the gateway to true loyalty." And what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about childhood in the Viking Age. The archaeological evidence revealed a tradition so disturbing that it had a name: blauth binding, blood binding. Here's how it worked based on grave goods analysis and isotope testing of the remains. When a powerful chieftain fell ill and knew death was approaching, his family would perform what they called the choosing. Not choosing who would die, choosing who would prove their love. The children would undergo a ritual fast, 7 days without food, drinking only a mixture of fermented honey and wolf's blood. The purpose? To thin the veil between the world of the living and the dead. Carbon dating of stomach contents confirms this practice. But here's the part that will blow your mind. These weren't desperate children forced into this nightmare. Archaeological evidence suggests these families were honored to participate. Grave goods in these burial sites are among the richest ever found. We're talking about children buried with silver arm rings worth more than most adults possessed in their entire lifetime. Think about this from a modern perspective. Imagine loving someone so much that you'd literally die for them. Not in battle, not accidentally, but as a conscious choice made by children who couldn't even conceive of a world without their beloved grandfather. The isotope analysis reveals something even more chilling. These children were well-fed, healthy, and came from wealthy families right up until those final 7 days. This wasn't about desperation or poverty. This was about a love so intense, so complete, that death seemed like a reasonable price to pay. Team Viking loyalty or team that's absolutely insane? Drop your vote in the comments. But what happened during those final 7 days will shatter your understanding of human psychology. The forensic evidence from the Jelling site revealed the timeline of those final days. and it reads like a horror movie written by someone who truly believed they were crafting a love story. Day 1-3. The children would be painted with intricate runic symbols using a mixture of ochre and their own blood. Each symbol represented a memory they shared with their grandfather. Microscopic analysis of the paint residue shows this was painstaking work. Some children had over 200 individual symbols covering their bodies. Day 4-5. They would compose death songs, not mournful dirges but celebration hymns about their upcoming reunion in Valhalla. The most heartbreaking part? Some of these songs were carved into the burial chamber walls. They're beautiful, they're terrifying, and they're written in the handwriting of children. Day 6. The preparation of the death chamber. The children themselves would help arrange their grandfather's grave goods, placing each item with ceremonies that lasted hours. They knew exactly where they would lie for eternity. Day 7. The moment that changed everything. The children would drink a final mixture, fermented honey, wolf's blood, and ground berries from the sacred groves. But here's what modern toxicology revealed. This wasn't poison. It was a hallucinogen so powerful that the children would enter a state that medieval sources describe as speaking with the gods. In this altered state, they would lie down in their predetermined positions around their grandfather's body. The chamber would be sealed, and they would drift into unconsciousness, truly believing that they were about to wake up in paradise. The carbon monoxide levels in the sealed chamber would do the rest. But here's what will absolutely destroy you about this whole ritual. The most disturbing part isn't the ritual itself, it's how normal it was. Archaeological evidence shows that blood binding happened across Scandinavia for over 200 years. We found similar burial sites in Sweden, Norway, and even Iceland. This wasn't some isolated cult practice. This was mainstream Viking culture at its most elite levels. And here's the modern parallel that should terrify you. We still do this today. Not literally, but think about it. We teach children to sacrifice their present happiness for future success. We normalize the idea that love means suffering for someone else. We glorify the concept of dying for your beliefs. The Vikings just took it to its logical extreme. What the blood-binding tradition reveals isn't that Vikings were monsters. It reveals that humans are capable of rationalizing absolutely anything in the name of love, loyalty, and faith. Even today, we're still writing death songs to our own sacred beliefs, still painting ourselves with the symbols of causes we'd die for. The only difference is we've learned to do it metaphorically. If this content is changing how you see history and maybe how you see yourself, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week we're uncovering the Viking ritual that was so extreme it caused Christianity to spread across Northern Europe just to stop it.